Imagine getting up every day full of energy as if you were in your 20s again. What would that be like? What would it be worth to you? What is your health worth to you? Think about it. Your health isn't everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. And yet, too many of us are taking it for granted until something goes wrong. And no one wakes up hoping to be diagnosed with a disease or chronic illness. And yet, we've never been taught how to be proactive in our health through our school or public health. As a registered health coach and integrative health practitioner, I believe it's time this information is made available to everyone. Combining new knowledge around your health and the ability to do my functional medicine lab tests in the comfort of your own home will allow you to optimize your health for today and all your tomorrows. Don't wait for your wake-up call. Welcome back to another episode of the Don't Wait for Your Wake-Up Call podcast. I am Melissa Deely, your host, and here with me today is Brad Pitzele. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
I'm excited for this conversation today because I have not ever had anybody come on to the show and talk about EWOT, exercise with oxygen therapy. Is that correct?
That's right.
Awesome. So I would love to introduce you to the audience, Brad. After a lifetime of strange medical conditions, Brad was diagnosed with autoimmune arthritis in 2010. And he began traditional treatments until he was diagnosed with a malignant melanoma in 2014. And realizing that the treatments had a higher risk of cancer, Brad was determined to find a better way. On his healing journey, he discovered he had Lyme disease and a coinfection called Bartonella. Brad's health continued to decline to a point where he could barely walk. He had severe brain fog and chronic fatigue issues. In 2016, his doctor recommended either trying hyperbaric oxygen therapy or exercise with oxygen therapy, otherwise known as EWOT. After researching this, Brad decided to give EWOT a shot. However, because he did not have the confidence in what was being sold on the marketplace at the time, he decided to build his own. And a year later, showing great improvements in his health, his doctor asked him if he would start making EWOT systems for his patients, and thus began 1000 Roads, his company, born with a mission of bringing down the price of EWOT so that more people could benefit from it. So I absolutely love how we were talking about it before the episode. Everything happens for a reason, and you are living your mission, and you had to go through what you went through in order to get to this place where you could live your mission. And I'm really excited to have this conversation. And congratulations to you for taking your health into your hands, taking responsibility for it, and looking for alternative solutions. And so I would just love to start with diving a little bit more into that journey. You know, we went through that pretty quickly. Malignant melanoma is a big deal. I've gone through that myself. Lyme disease is a big deal. Many people struggle with that today. I'd love to just talk about what you learned along the way through this process.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, I started out very much in the traditional medical vein and trying all traditional therapies until is when I got melanoma and I knew that the autoimmune therapies I was on could cause cancer and specifically melanoma. I went to my rheumatologist and said, "What do I do? Like, if I don't take these, I'm going to die of an autoimmune condition. But if I take them, I'm going to die of cancer." I'm like, I really didn't have death this early in my plan. And he's like, "Oh no, we'll just try something else. It'll be a different." And it was basically the same kind of drug pathway, but it was a different brand. And I went home and I was very disheartened. And that's when I realized those two ways, neither one is a really good outcome. So I had to find my own. And I spent, gosh, thousands of hours reading and researching and trying to understand everything from gut health to detoxification pathways to herbs to antibiotics to, I mean, medical devices, non-traditional devices. I mean, I can't tell you. Every once in a while, someone will ask me to list it off, and then they'll mention something else that they did that wasn't on the list. I'm like, oh yeah, I did that too. I forgot about that. Because it was kind of like, and as I was trying them, I was getting worse for a period of time and then kind of staying kind of steady for a little bit at the bottom, even for a while. And so it was, yeah, it's scary, but I think to your point, it became a wake-up call that there just wasn't an answer in traditional medicine for me. And the answers they had weren't answering the questions I was asking, like how do I get better and return to a full normal life?
And I love that you were asking that question. And
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
time where they weren't offering you any hope, you had it within you to look for your own hope. You
Hmm.
you knew enough intuitively, even before you started your research, or possibly you already knew this just from your own education, that the power within our body to heal itself when we create the environment for it to heal is so profound. And you
So
were just
profound.
looking for, how do I create that environment so that it can heal?
Yes. So much hope is, and I always tell folks, hope is the most important thing. If that's the only thing you gain from, speaking with me, I'm always happy about that because hope is really the fire that allows us to move forward and continue to strive. So,
I love that. You just gave me full body goosebumps because that's exactly where I'm at when working with my clients. And one of my favorite sayings is, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And if you believe you can heal, guess what? You can heal. You've proven it. I've proven it. Many others out there have proven it. And that's why I have this podcast, is to share these stories with others who are on their healing journey so that they can garner hope from other people's journeys. Because they know, if someone else is in your shoes right now and they know that you healed yourself, that just gives them that little bit of hope. Because if you can do it, they can too.
yeah, that's right.
So
Absolutely.
I absolutely love that you're here and sharing this story. So let's dive into the science of how our bodies use oxygen, how that changes as we age, and how that's such an important part of our healing journey.
Absolutely. And I didn't realize it at the beginning. But there's a gentleman, Arthur Gurion. He wrote the medical textbook on physiology, maybe in the 1950s. And every single doctor, certainly in North America and almost worldwide, has read that textbook as they've studied to be a doctor. And what he says at the root of all disease is a lack of oxygen. And that's really powerful. So, what happens in your body every year past the age of 25, our body loses about 1% of its ability to utilize oxygen, which doesn't mean anything when you're 27 and not a whole lot when you're 30. But when you're getting to be 45 and then 65 and certainly 85, it's a big difference. And that's part of the reason why, as we age, we notice we have less energy, our body hurts more, it's not repairing as quickly. All of this is due to the lack of oxygen. So, our body burns glucose to create APT, which is the energy source. And there's two ways it does it. When it has enough oxygen, it uses aerobic respiration. And when you take a molecule of glucose and you turn it into ATP using oxygen through aerobic respiration, you produce 36 units of APT. Now, when it runs out of oxygen, what it does is it produces energy through anaerobic respiration, and that produces about two molecules of APT. So, like 6% of the energy. So, you can imagine a cell that's being starved of oxygen. All of a sudden, its energy source went from 100% down to 6%. And so immediately that cell goes into this kind of survival mode and it has to turn off non-functional, non-essential functions, excuse me. And many of those are things like taking out the trash. Now, what I mean by that is when you're using anaerobic respiration, you're also producing a lot more metabolic waste. You produce something called lactic acid. We've all heard about. That's what makes your muscles sore when you exercise. That's because those muscles have gone anaerobic. They couldn't get enough oxygen. And so that lactic acid, it takes oxygen to remove it from the body and break it down. And because you don't have enough oxygen, it just lets it build up inside the cell walls. So now the cell walls become essentially a dumping ground of toxic waste products. That acid makes the cells misperform. They're lower energy. So they're dealing with all of these insults. And so, obviously, if you can restore energy back to those cells and turn them back to aerobic respiration, you can help detoxify your body better, and you can help each one of the cells work better. So when we're talking energy, it certainly does mean the energy you and I feel when we're well rested and we've got enough energy to get through the day. But it means more than that. If your liver has enough energy, then it can detoxify well. If your brain has enough energy, it can think clearly. If your immune system has enough energy, it can defend you and be the most competent version of your immune system. And so that's why it's really important. And the other thing that a lot of folks aren't aware of is is this was proven way back in the 1920s by Otto Warburg, but you can take any normal cell and turn it into a cancerous cell simply by starving it of oxygen. And indeed, there's a ton of research that shows that cancer grows in oxygen low environments, and the survival rate of people with hard tumors, for instance, is directly proportional to how much oxygen is in that tumor. So oxygen is very anti-cancer. The other thing about it is, so as we're talking about the science, in Western society nowadays, we have this, we refer to it as inflammaging. Like we're
Yes.
all supposed to increase our inflammation levels as we age. Like that's just a foregone conclusion. But is it?
Don't you love the programming that we're given, right?
That's
Just like we're
right.
supposed to have more aches and pains as we age, as opposed to considering, I have aches and pains. What is my body trying to tell me?
Absolutely. Our body is so smart if we can just listen to it. And we do need a lot of programming to tell us not to listen to it. I was on a little tangent. I always tell folks when you go to the doctor and they say, we don't see anything, that's because they've only got five senses. And you have like these infinite sensors inside your body that are telling you something's out of homeostasis and it knows it. And you always have to listen to that. So speaking of inflammation, there's the science is really clear on inflammation. Anywhere in your body you have inflammation, you have low oxygen. And the inverse is true too. Anywhere you have low oxygen, you have inflammation. They're two sides of the same coin and they're completely inseparable. So when we're talking about this inflammaging, it's directly related to this increased oxygen deficit as we age. And so if you can, recover that oxygen deficit for your body, you can turn off that inflammation, you can stop cancer at its root, you can help your body detoxify, and in general, you can improve your general health and well-being, and so forth.
And I love everything that you're sharing because it's right up my alley, and my audience knows that. I call myself the friendly toxin slayer, and I help people detox their physical body, their emotional body, their mental body, their spiritual body. So people know detoxification is an important part of my life. And in fact, I'm doing my detox this week. So it's a fasting day for me, letting the autophagy kick in and clear out all of those cells, as well as tapping into the science of epigenetics that we know that,
Yeah.
and Bruce Lipton says now it's even less than 1% of all dis-ease of the body is triggered directly by our genes. And the rest of it is triggered by environment, the food we're eating, our stress levels, our sleep, our oxygenation of the body, the toxic load in our body, et cetera, et cetera. And when our inflammation levels get high enough, that's what triggers the switch to our genetics to turn on the disease. However, if the inflammation levels don't get high enough and we just have normal levels of inflammation, that switch never gets turned on.
Yeah, it's kind of like telling us we're all genetically predisposed towards obesity, although all of our great great grandparents didn't have obesity, but all of us eating Twinkies and McDonald's for some reason we're just genetically
Genetically
predisposed.
predisposed, yeah. Food industry marketing, just like last year, I think it was that there was research put out by some top universities. I think Tufts was involved in this, that Lucky Charms are the healthiest breakfast to start your child's day with.
Well,
You can have any research come out and say anything if you pay the right amount of dollars for them to say what you want them to say. Let's
my
face
favorite my favorite research is it always shows whoever's funding the research is the biggest determinant in outcome of anything.
Exactly. Exactly. So I love that you have a solution to help not only prevent disease, prevent inflammaging, which is huge, as well as help people who are going through a health crisis right now be able to undo the damage. Because again, our body is so smart and so resilient that if it's in a situation where there's dis-ease in the body and we create an environment where healing can actually happen, it will start healing and it will start healing very quickly.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
talk to me about how EWOT works.
So first, the science on it. Well, first I'll explain what EWOT is. Essentially, an EWOT session is you will do a cardiovascular workout for just 15 minutes while you're breathing near pure oxygen. So if you're sitting at sea level, the air is averages about 21% oxygen. When we're doing an EWOT session, we're breathing in 93% oxygen, so almost pure oxygen. And so um, what's what's great about EWOT just from a top level is it's super simple to do. It's and folks who have a difficult time even exercising find it's easier to exercise while you're doing oxygen. Now, what it does inside your body is pretty amazing. So it's a very close cousin to hyperbaric oxygen. Now, in hyperbaric oxygen, we're pushing oxygen in using pressure to push more oxygen through your lung membrane and into your blood. And the benefits of hyperbaric oxygen, I say, stop at the lung membrane. Once they push it through, that pressure is not really exerting pressure inside your blood vessels, and we know that because your blood pressure doesn't go up significantly. In EWOT, instead of pushing it, we're using cardiovascular to pull that oxygen through. And because we have all these synergies of cardiovascular exercise, you start breathing deeper, your lung membrane thins when you exercise, you're breathing more rapidly, your heart beats deeper, more quickly, your blood vessels dilate. All of these physiological changes that happen with exercise allow us to bring in much more oxygen. So in a 15-minute EWOT session, you bring in as much oxygen as you would in 90 minutes inside of a hard shell hyperbaric chamber, which is one you have to do in a doctor's office. And if we compare it to like the soft shell chambers you see athletes and celebrities doing in their homes, it's about the equivalent of 6.5 hours in there. So it's a massive amount in a short period of time, which makes it a very realistic protocol because as you get into the wellness space and you're trying to do different things, at some point you become time constrained. There's just not enough time in the day to do everything. So this is something that's very realistic. So, and then of course, what I tell folks, our customers come back and tell us when they've started hyperbaric and move over to EWOT, they see more dramatic results and more quickly. And it makes sense. It's like if I were to tell you, Melissa, hey, I invented an exercise in a pill. I'm not going to tell you what's in it. What do you think is more valuable for your body, my exercise in a pill or real exercise? You kind of know that answer, don't you? That's the intuitive part we were talking about. It's the same thing. How do you think oxygen is going to benefit your body better when you're laying down in a tube and we're forcing it into you, or when you're exercising and your body is thirsting for that oxygen, right? So the way it works, interestingly enough, is if you were to look at your red blood cells, they carry your oxygen. About 98% of your oxygen is carried through your red blood cells, and they're pretty much at their capacity. So if you were to put a little pulse oximeter on your finger, you'd see you're probably at 99%. There's not room for much more oxygen, breathing pure oxygen or not. But when we breathe in this much oxygen, we create an environment where actually that oxygen dissolves into our blood plasma. And our blood plasma is like this clearish brown liquid that the red blood cells ride on. And it normally only carries about 2% of our oxygen, but we saturate it. Because it's thinner than the red blood cells, it's able to get to places where inflammation in our circulatory system has choked off blood flow. So at the very ends of our circulatory system are these capillaries that are thinner than human hair. And when we get any inflammation, they just shut and the red blood cells can't get through. But this blood plasma can get through and oxygenate all those cells downstream immediately. But the real power comes, they create this anti-inflammatory effect. I talked about anywhere where you don't get enough oxygen, you have inflammation. So when we bring the oxygen into these inflamed parts of the circulatory system, it creates this anti-inflammatory effect that reopens and reestablishes normal blood flow. So when you're not doing EWOT, the red blood flow cells are now able to flow through there and continue to oxygenate all these cells downstream. And a gentleman was doing research on this in the 1960s and 70s, and he discovered that even after just a few sessions, he was able to reestablish more of the youthful blood flow in elderly people who did just 2 or 3 sessions. And when he came back and looked at them weeks and weeks later. So that was kind of the birth of EWOT. And so from it, you get so many benefits. We talked about anti-inflammatory, better energy, better sleep, anti-cancer. We have a lot of folks talk better brain function, better athletic performance. That's actually an interesting one too, because we have folks come to us who are very sick and they're like, I can't exercise. And the first thing they notice is when they put the mask on, it's easier to exercise with the oxygen. Like if you're exercising on an exercise bike at a resistance of 6, you might have to go up to 7 or 8 just to feel like you're getting the same level of workout. But then, a few weeks later, they might have to go up to 8, and then a few weeks later, they're up to 9 and so forth. And so very quickly, they're going to see their cardiovascular capabilities increase. So, yeah, that's kind of how it works in a nutshell. It's pretty powerful. And, we're helping people with all sorts of medical conditions, as well as folks just looking for anti-aging and general wellness benefits.
I love that. I was just going to ask about anti-aging because I assumed that there would be anti-aging benefit based on everything that you've said so far. So that's awesome to know. And you mentioned exercise bikes. So is that the only way people can access EWOT or rowing machines, anything cardiovascular? Tell me more about that.
That's a great question. It's anything really, any kind of cardiovascular exercise. We have folks who are so sick that they might start slowly walking on a treadmill or bouncing on a rebounder or just standing on a vibration plate or starting with some calisthenics or yoga to begin with. But really, my recommendation to folks is you use the piece of cardio equipment that you're most comfortable with and you like the most, because the real benefits of EWOT come over the long course. For me, I saw incremental benefits into my 3rd year. And so my goal is always to get you into that 2nd and 3rd year and really kind of max out on the benefits of this. And so, if there's something that might be 5% better, but you hate it, it's not worth it, right?
Right,
So
'cause you're not going to do it. And
that's
just
right.
out of interest, I know you said 15-minute session in terms of, is this something you do daily in terms of, cardio workout and the time, right? The time factor for all the people trying to do all the things for their health and wellness. I know some people, and myself included, do cardio 3 to 4 times a week and then strength training other days of the week, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you do and what have you found is of most benefit to your customers? And perhaps it's different if your goal is anti-aging and wellness versus, you know, fending off a disease of the body.
Well, in general, I think it's pretty simple. I recommend that you try to get up to 3 to 5 times a week. There's folks in the anti-cancer community that are doing it 3 times a day, and there's not a lot of harm there if you're not beating up your body too much. I tend to think it's overkill. A 15-minute session will give you great benefits. We have folks who are very sick and they do it once a week to start off with, and they'll get good benefits there. For me personally, I do it 5 times a week, but on 2 of the days, I also lift some weights. And what I'll do is after I get done weightlifting, I will do an EWOT session. And sometimes I'll just do 10 minutes on those days. And it's amazing because it blasts out all the lactic acid. And so
Right.
if I miss like a week or even 2 weeks because I'm traveling and I can't lift weights and I go back to it, I like never get sore. And I got sore when I was like 28. So I'm like, I don't understand it. I'm slightly older than 28 yet now. But
Only slightly.
yeah, a little bit. But so it's kind of surprises me, but even nowadays doing it. But yeah, so that's what I do is I do like 3 good sessions and then I'll weightlift 2 days and I'll add a session at the end of it, sometimes a full one, sometimes a little shortened session.
That's awesome. So again, it comes down to people's goals, where they're at, et cetera, et cetera. Tell me more about what you've created that people can purchase and have in their homes in order to make this something that they can do 3 to 5 times a week.
Yeah, so when I started looking at EWOT systems, most of the providers out there selling were selling to chiropractors' offices and clinics and doctors who were turning around and selling it as a service. And so it was a very high ticket price. Some of them were 10 and $25,000. And so when you're sick, you always feel like someone's coming to you with a $10,000 thing you can try or $20,000. And you just kind of feel like, it's like vampires sucking your blood sort of thing. And you're desperate. So you want to try it, but you just don't know what to put your chips on. So our goal is really to bring this down and make it accessible so people could do it in their homes because the power is being able to do it frequently and going to a doctor's office frequently isn't super easy. You'll do it for a few weeks and it'll have great benefits over a few weeks, but doing it in your home for several months is going to have a lot more benefits. So what we did is we just, we designed the product a little bit differently and we quite frankly, we take much thinner margins, knowing that hopefully we can make it up in selling more volume and growing the market so more people can benefit from it. So it's kind of been a little bit of a passion project of mine, a little bit of a thumb in the eye of that kind of high profit margin model that I see out there, preying on sick people. So
Well, I love that. And so I presume, because you said people can use it during yoga, they can use it if they're just walking on a treadmill, right up to riding a bike, doing, being on a rowing machine, that it's an attachment with the mask and attaches to something that you have attached to yourself while you're walking or doing yoga, et cetera, et cetera.
good question. So when you're exercising, you can easily use 50 or 60 liters of oxygen a minute. So think of a 2 liter bottle of soda. That's a big volume, right? 30 of those in a minute. So we need a lot of oxygen. Now we have what the system looks like is there's a device. We have 2 models, one that produces 5 liters of oxygen a minute and one that produces 10 liters a minute of oxygen. You'll notice that's not enough to carry that 50 or 60 liters you need to exercise. So we use that device and we fill up 1,000 liter reservoir. So it's about 6 feet wide and 5.5 feet tall. It holds 1,000 liters of oxygen. And then off that comes a 10-foot hose that plugs into a mask. And you can buy hose extensions if you need 20 or something. And basically you wear this mask that's designed for exercise around your face and you just breathe normally and you just do your cardio workout. At first, it's a little weird putting a mask on, but after you've done it twice or 3 times, it's old hat and you don't even notice it and you just go about doing your cardio. And for me, it cut my cardio from 30 minutes to 15. So that was great.
Bought you time in your day.
That's right.
So my one experience with EWOT was at a conference, at a health conference a couple of years ago, and it was a mask, and they had me riding a bike. And what they did was they flooded me with a 93% oxygen, and then they intermittently reduced my oxygen back down to really low levels, and then they flooded me and back. And I don't fully understand the purpose of that, so I would love for you to talk about that as well.
Yeah, so there's 1 or 2 companies that do that. This what they call altitude switching. They switch from high oxygen to oxygen deprivation. I think the general purpose of that is vasodilation, growing your blood vessels. So when your body goes into an oxygen deficit, like anytime you exercise, there's vasodilation where they grow the cross section diameter of the blood vessel so it can carry more blood to those areas. And so that's the general idea. It's also there's a scientific term called hormesis, which is basically your body adapting to stress, which is also what happens during exercise, generally speaking. We don't sell that for a few different reasons. The biggest reason is as I mentioned earlier, anywhere in the body you have low oxygen, you have inflammation. And we generally have a lot of customers who are chronically ill, or they're trying to, anti-aging and trying to keep general wellness. So introducing a lot of inflammation isn't necessarily good for that. Where I think it is potentially good is if you're someone who's trying to set a personal record in an athletic competition and get that extra 1 or 2% out, you can do it. And I always tell folks, we won't sell it because I think the prices that are being charged for that are just a little bit outrageous, especially when you can get the same benefits if you just do breath holds. So I always tell folks you can hold your breath for 5 or 7 seconds every minute while you're exercising and get 0% oxygen, which is even more restrictive, and it doesn't require all the technology, and they want you to flip a switch while you're doing it. And that's kind of, if you're doing exercise and you're trying to, it's kind of a
Yeah.
little
I
bit
had
difficult.
someone standing next to me flipping the switch. I didn't have to do it myself. However, yeah,
Right.
I really appreciate that feedback and understanding of it for people who may be considering, using EWOT on their health journey so that they know the different options that are out there. Because I'm a mountain girl, and it was really interesting. It's not super high here in Whistler, BC. However, it's definitely higher than sea level. And so compared to the other people at the conference, they were commenting that with the oxygen reduction, that I was doing better than most because I'm used to that slightly,
Yep.
lower level anyway. And just wanted to know, does that really matter, or is it not necessary? So yeah, I like
For
the idea.
wellness,
Hold
not
your
so
breath.
much.
Hold your breath is
Yeah,
even more powerful. So
that's
yeah.
right.
I'd love for you to, do you have a couple of customer case studies or stories that you can share with us? Success stories, I guess, with clients you've worked with.
We get so many, and that's actually my favorite part about the job is when a customer comes back and talks to us, because to be honest, it's probably only 5% of the folks. And what I will say is one of the things we do different, when I was looking for EWAT, there wasn't a lot of customer stories out there. And so we are the first company that's ever put reviews on our website, verified reviews. And I think there's some pretty good stories, even in those short reviews, of folks talking about the benefits they're seeing. But the first one that comes to mind for me was a gentleman who had um, CTE, traumatic brain injury. He had gotten several concussions. He'd been in a car accident, and he was a tax preparer. And he said, I can't, my brain gets scrambled. I get angry in the afternoon and can't control my temper. And I'm struggling to get by. And he started doing EWOT. And like he came back after a while, said, after my first session that day, I felt amazing. I was clear-headed for the rest of the afternoon. And it was like the fog had lifted, and I didn't have any anger issues. Next morning I was kind of back to where I normally was, and then didn't do any EWOT that day. And the next day he did it, and he was better, and it lasted longer into the next day. And after like just a week or two, he was like where one session would last him 2 days. And it was funny, he had to travel to Florida. I remember him telling me he was like looking furiously on the internet to find like an oxygen bar or anything to get a little bit of oxygen in him to kind of help him through the trip. But sure enough, after a while, he's back to good. He's able to function. His brain's functioning better. He doesn't have the emotional issues he was having, and life is normal. And so I love hearing those stories where people recover. And obviously, cognitive issues are really scary. Um, we have folks who are using a RECODE program, which stands for Reversal Cognitive Decline. It's a Dr. Bredesen who's got a
Mhm.
protocol out there for that, and they've started to recommend EWOT. And I've had customers come back to us and talk to us about how they're reversing their cognitive decline and their benefit. Um, I had a customer up in Michigan, and he had cancer, and he was stage 4 cancer, and he was given 6 months to live, and he was never going to walk again. He was like in a walker, and that was basically it. And he came back to me, 6 months, 6 months later. He's like, I just walked 6 miles and I'm beating this thing. It goes back to that hope, right? And he's like, I'm
Yeah.
beating this thing. and it's done. And he's like, I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to write my book, sort of thing. And you just love hearing those stories. I can personally relate when I just thought my life was, it's just shrinking the aperture in which I viewed the world. And I didn't like, you're just waiting for your candle to slowly get extinguished. And so when you just see that spark back in people, it's amazing. It's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I love those stories. Thanks for sharing and yeah, giving people hope, right?
Yeah,
There's,
absolutely.
you know, what can be more important in our place here on this earth other than to give other people hope and share
Absolutely.
that. And it, as you said, one spark. My business partner and I talk about that all the time. One spark can create an explosion, a positive,
That's right.
wonderful explosion. So love
That's
that.
right.
And I also love the name of your company, 1000 Roads. And I just want to ask you, what does 1000 Roads mean to you? Where did that come from? Because I have an idea of what it means to me, and I'd love to know what it means to you.
Healing is a journey. I'll say that. And everybody's journey is unique. And what I went through and what you went through and what someone else went through is always infinitely different. And so it was kind of paying homage to that journey for folks and just recognizing that we all come at it from a different place in our lives and our different challenges and um, honoring that. Again, it was something, it was kind of started as a passion project to help other folks with chronic illness recover. And so that's kind of where it came out of.
I love it. Because, yeah, what was coming to me is exactly that. There's 1000 roads to healing, right?
That's right. That's right.
There's always a way because our body is designed to heal. And keeping that hope alive, knowing that I haven't tried everything yet. There's still something else. And perhaps EWOT is something that you haven't tried, the listener, and that can help you on your journey. So I'm so grateful you came on the show today, Brad, to share this with people. It's something that I hadn't heard of up to 2 years ago. And, I'm sure there's many listeners that have never heard of this, and it may be something that they can add into their healing journey and that will have great benefit to them. It's certainly not going to hurt anybody and it will have great benefit. Although initially, as you said, it may not look like it.
Yes.
And over time, usage over time, like this isn't a magic pill. And
Nope.
we've been programmed to believe in magic pills, and I'm always saying magic pills don't exist. However, this is something that in a relatively short amount of time can have a very powerful impact. That man with stage 4 cancer given 6 months to live, and 4 months later, he's walking 6 miles and beating this thing, right?
Yeah.
There is some commitment to it, as there is with any healing journey. And considering how long it took you to get where you're at in your health, which can be years,
Yeah.
a few months to turn it around is a very short amount of time.
Really is.
So I love that. So I love, Brad, to ask every single guest that comes on the show, what does "don't wait for your wake up call" mean to you?
I love that. It resonates with me personally, the name, because my wake up call was that rheumatologist saying, just try another of the same thing. Um, and I hope, my wake up call was that cancer. And so, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I hope you don't wait till, you crash into the wall. But more so, what you offer, Melissa, I think, and what I love about it is it's a community of folks who care about improving their health and they're willing to look outside the box and try new things and be open to the possibilities and the hope that they can have a better life tomorrow than today.
Love that. And that's absolutely available to each and every one of us. Beautiful. So if someone wants to get hold of you, if you can let us know I've got it all in the show notes, but I'll have you say it all as well. The best place for people to reach out to you to learn about your EWOT products. Please share all of that.
Sure. Our website is 1000 roads, all spelled out, ONETHOUSANDROADS.com. That's the best place. And you can go to our contact page and send us an email or give us a phone call. There's always a human on the other end that'll pick up and speak to you. And obviously, one of the things we try to do different, as I mentioned, we do reviews, but we also try to be there for our customers both before the sale and after the sale if you have any questions. and trying to educate yourself along the way, feel free to reach out. We're always here. There are no bad questions.
And I believe you're in the US, and a question for you because my audience is quite global. Do you ship internationally?
We do. We absolutely
Perfect.
do.
Love that. And is there any last words of wisdom that you would like to share with the audience as we round out this episode?
I think we covered the biggest one, which is always maintain hope. I mean, that's the most important thing. That is your life force. And if you have that, then you're there to fight another day. So that's really it. And yeah, it's the key to, I think, youth, and it's the key to health.
I love that. And if you're having a hard time finding hope for yourself, tap into hope from someone else. Look at Brad's story, look at my story, look at other people who have healed, and allow that hope to be the hope that you follow until you see the progress that gives you hope for yourself. So, love that. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Brad. Really appreciate you sharing your story, your expertise, and for creating this to get this into people's homes at a far lower cost so that more people can have access to it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Melissa. I appreciate it.
And thank you to the audience for tuning in each and every week, caring about your health, and for sharing these episodes with other people in your life that you know can benefit from it. I'd like to introduce you to Girls Matter today. It is a nonprofit that I started back in 2017 to help ensure girls in developing countries get an education. You see, education is not free all the way around the world, and it very often comes down to families having to choose between paying for their daughter's education or feeding them. And sometimes they can't even afford to feed them. They will marry them off as teenagers and they become someone else's problem. At Girls Matter, we fundraise to keep girls in school, pay for their high school education, ensure they have the menstrual supplies they need so they don't miss a week of school every single month. Because we know that in keeping girls in school, we are breaking the poverty cycle one girl, one family, one village at a time. When we educate the girls, we actually can grow the GDP of the country. When we educate the girls, we're also having a powerful ripple effect because an educated girl is more than twice as likely to educate her own children. So if this is something that resonates with you and you would like to give back as you listen to my podcast and learn for yourself, and you would like to help other girls learn and improve their education, please go to girlsmatter.ca and donate. You can do one-time donations, subscription donations, whatever feels right for you. As you enjoy the content I provide to you, please choose to give back and support girls in improving their life elsewhere around the world. And for that, I thank you.